Thank you and good evening. On July 4th, our nation will commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This is an opportunity to pause and reflect on our nation's past, honor the contributions of all individuals who built this country, and look ahead to the future we want to create for the next generation and beyond. Throughout our nation's history, music, that universal language, has played an indispensable role. From protest songs to anthems of solidarity, music has been used to express dissent, promote unity, create a stronger community, and inspire change. To celebrate this historic event, River City Ringers of Omaha, under the direction of Dr. Brian Liu, bring you America at 250, a musical journey. Thank you. We began our concert with grand old Yankee Doodle extravaganza with Lyle Jackson on trumpet and David Wan on drums. British troops sang Yankee Doodle in 1754 during the French and Indian War to mock the colonists. But the colonists embraced this catchy tune and turned it into a song of pride and defiance during the Revolution. Our next song is a spiritual with an oral history dating back to the late 1700s. Slaves in the U.S., like the singer in this song, endured suffering, journeying through a way that was rough and steep, but also looked forward to the redemption and freedom they would find in heaven, the hope for peace beyond understanding. We can feel the struggles of African Americans during the 1800s and their continued struggles today, more than 150 years later, in the song, I'm Just a Poor Wayfaring Stranger. And joining us on saxophone is Diego Villalba Lopez. The 1830 U.S. Indian Removal Act, forcing relocation of Native Americans, caused immense suffering across our land. These communities have taken great steps to protect their practices, cultural beliefs, and deep connection with their natural surroundings, to include the aurora borealis, or northern lights, that natural light display appearing as dancing, shimmering curtains of green, pink, and violet light in the northern night sky. Traditional perspectives on this phenomenon vary. For example, the Cree believe the lights are the spirits of their ancestors dancing in the sky. The Algonquins see the lights as signs that their creator continues to watch over them. And several groups believe the auroras represent the spirits of animals that they hunted. Aurora is derived from the Greek word meaning dawn. The dawn of a new day can offer a fresh start, an opportunity for growth, a chance to change perspective and start anew. In recognition of all Native Americans, here is Matthew Compton's original composition titled Aurora. Thank you. America's community music groups formed out of the Revolutionary War Fife and Bugle Corps. The Industrial Revolution brought band instruments to America, and small town bands flourished beginning in the mid 1800s and became essential community institutions, with thousands of bands across the country playing for parades, picnics, and political events. Often serving as a leveler of the people, these ensembles bridged social divides and promoted civic engagement. Many bands are still in existence today. The Lincoln, Nebraska Municipal Band is over 100 years old, and the Allentown, Pennsylvania Band is the oldest, having been in continuous existence since 1828. Our next song, written for the U.S. 1976 bicentennial celebration, is a tribute to these wonderful musical institutions. Here is Walter and Carol Nuna's arrangement of All America Hometown Band. What became known as ragtime music was played as early as the 1820s by plantation slaves for dance events called rags. The music ensemble often included a banjo providing the syncopation. Scott Joplin, known as the king of ragtime, standardized the music by fusing Western classical music with those plantation dance rhythms. Ragtime quickly established itself as a distinctly American form of music and became the first African American music to have an impact on mainstream popular culture. In 1908, Joplin wrote a song dedicated to the vaudeville act, The Five Musical Spinners. The group played their version of the song on two xylophones and a marimba. And their version, the xylophones and the marimba often stretched across the entire stage, sort of like what our handbell choir is doing today. The song was so popular that sometimes when the Five Musical Spinners played this song, the crowd wanted them to play it again because it was so popular. So here is that song that the Five Musical Spinners just were not allowed to cut out of their program, Pineapple Rag. George grew up in the early 1900s and had no interest in music. That wasn't until around age 10 when he heard a friend play a violin recital. Around the same time, George's parents bought a piano for his older brother, Ira. Much to their parents' surprise, and really much to Ira's relief, it was George who liked playing piano. And by age 17, George published his first song, which earned him 50 cents. Ira, though, loved to write and had an eye for the everyday details of life. He had his first published song lyrics at the age of 21. Together, these brothers went on to write some of the most recognizable Broadway songs, such as Rhapsody in Blue, Porgy and Bess, I Got Rhythm, and Embraceable You. In many songs, George incorporated some of that ragged time from Scott Joplin to create upbeat and syncopated music. Douglas Wagner created a medley of the brothers' most popular hits in our next song, titled Gershwin. And at the director's podium is Linda Boatwright. Did any of that music bring back some memories for anybody? Very sure. In the 1920s, jazz music began to evolve into bigger band formats, combining elements of ragtime, black spirituals, blues, and European music. The music evolved into an easy-flowing style of jazz that became known as swing. As this new style emerged in the 1930s, it took the country by storm, with people inventing new dances to complement the music's driving rhythm. Glenn Miller and his orchestra introduced swing music across the country through his radio broadcasts and recordings. His band is known for such hits as Moonlight Serenade and Chattanooga Choo Choo. In 1942, he joined the U.S. Army Air Force, where he formed the Major Glenn Miller Army Air Forces Orchestra, performing for soldiers across Europe. And by the way, the Glenn Miller Orchestra is still in existence today, and you can hear it played in Lincoln, Nebraska on June the 18th at the Lead Center. Here is one of the most iconic big band hits of the swing era, which was very popular on the brink of World War II, In the Mood. The boogie genre of blues music originated from African American communities in Texas and Louisiana as early as the 1870s and was often referred to as fast western. Modern boogie woogie emerged in the early 1920s with songs like Tin Roof Blues and Chicago Stomps. Swing met boogie woogie in the 1930s, with the Will Bradley Orchestra having a string of hits, including Beat Me Daddy, Ate to the Bar. But it was the Andrews Sisters who put this genre on the charts, with their iconic World War II song written for the movie Buck Privates. The lyrics tell about a new military recruit, a trumpeter, who instead of his favorite boogie woogie was forced to play only reveille. That was until the captain recruited some other musicians and allowed him to play reveille in his own style. During World War II, this song was popular and boosted the morale of the 10 million serving in the U.S. military, as well as Americans at home. Written by Don Ray and Huey Price, here is Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, with David Wan joining us once again on drums. In the late 1950s, high schooler Brian Wilson was fascinated with how songs were put together. He taught his brothers, Carl and Dennis, how to sing harmony, recruited a neighbor as well as his cousin Mike Love, and before long they were performing at their high school. Dennis suggested that the group write songs to celebrate their Southern California lifestyle. Brian started composing, and by 1961 they released their first song, which hit number 75 on the Billboard's Hot 100. The group drew on 1950s rock and roll, black R&B, and pre-rock and roll vocal groups to create their signature California rock. By the mid-1960s, they were known for songs like Fun, 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 California Girls, and Surfin' Safari. Their high-energy music is an important staple of American culture and had a great influence on the Beatles. Here is Beach Boys Medley, arranged for handbells by someone in our own choir, Linda Boatwright. Now there's a song that brings back some memories, right? One of those songs. Theater director Jerome Robbins brought together a team to create a musical that addressed social issues, especially racism, gang violence, and the struggles of immigrants in 1950s New York City. Two men of the group, Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim, both from Jewish descent, have themselves experienced and witnessed prejudice and the struggles of immigration, and they incorporated these experiences in the music they created. And in response to a changing New York City landscape after World War II, Bernstein wrote music that fused together the various genres he heard in the city to include Latin, jazz, and classical. Today, this musical, a dramatic retelling of Romeo and Juliet, is considered one of the greatest American musicals ever written, known for its powerful story and unforgettable music, to include songs like I Feel Pretty, America, and Maria. Here is selections from West Side Story.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. If you haven't caught on yet, we've been ringing through America's 250 years in chronological order. We started with the Revolutionary War music, journeyed through African American spiritual, music about Native American values, the Black diaspora's influence on jazz, and somehow we got to the Beach Boys. You just heard selections from West Side Story, which is an incredibly important work in American music. The Jewish composer and conductor Leonard Bernstein bravely and boldly took on concepts of interracial marriage and gang violence and things that just weren't talked about back in 1957. Those were private conversations that were not publicly discussed. And nearly 70 years later, after West Side Story was written, it seems that we are still fighting some of those same issues that Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim were trying to somehow figure out and justify and reconcile. Although the musical ends tragically, it still leaves us with a pretty powerful message that ultimately love will win. The Hispanic and Latin styles of West Side Story have had an incredible impact on American music. Our next piece, Calles Americana, which means American streets in Spanish, takes a similar approach. It's filled with vibrant rhythms, dance-like energy, and similar harmonies. Little is known about the song, yet it seems incredibly relevant today. Live music has become so popular and influential that sometimes you don't even recognize it as Hispanic or Latin styles. Here in Omaha, our Hispanic and Latin community is exceptionally vibrant. I teach in the South Omaha area at Bryan High School, and the majority of my students are Hispanic, Latin, Black. And I hear the influence from the music that they listen to in class and in the hallways kind of represented in this next song. As we look ahead, we may not know exactly what the next chapter of American music is and is currently being written, and we are currently consumers and influences on what that will be. But perhaps Calles Americana is just a little glimpse of what's to come.
The U.S. Armed Forces date back to June 1775 with the creation of the Continental Army to provide a full-time force to represent all 13 colonies against the British. The Continental Navy and Marines were created later that same year. The Revenue Cutter Service, precursor to today's Coast Guard, was established in 1790. The Air Force became a separate service in 1947, and most recently, the Space Force was established in 2019. For over 250 years, our military men and women have defended our country's freedom, fought in wars across the world, deterred conflicts, supported allies, and provided disaster relief around the globe. Our next song, Armed Forces Medley, unfortunately does not include all of the services. So at this time, I'd like to ask anyone in our audience who served in the Coast Guard or Space Force to please stand so we may recognize you. Thank you. As we play the medley, we invite veterans and active duty members to stand when you hear the song of your service and remain standing so that we may honor you. The United States Army. The United States Air Force. The United States Navy hymn. far.
First of all, I would like to not only thank Karen for her wonderful narration and storytelling, but for her own military career service. Can we give Miss Karen Hartnett a round of applause? Again, we'd like to thank you all for coming out this evening and supporting us. Without you, our practices probably wouldn't mean a lot to us. So thank you for coming out and supporting what we do. It gives us a reason to get together every week and find a reason to share music and story and connection with you. And what better reason than America's 250th birthday? I'd also like to thank the River City Ringers for their countless hours, exhaustive amount of practice for preparing this concert. We meet once a week for 2.5 hours on a Thursday night, but that one practice of 2.5 hours is just a drop in the bucket into what it takes to practice at home, on a couple extra Saturdays, our dress rehearsals. I estimate that altogether for all of us, it's well over 1,500 hours. Can we give them a round of applause for their lovely hard work? As you can see, we are not a small group of people. We do not travel lightly. In fact, it actually takes an entire U-Haul to get here. So we're also exceptionally grateful for St. Timothy Lutheran for hosting us. We truly do take over this entire building to move in. This is only our performance stuff that we use. You should see the stuff that it takes to get us here in our cases. So thank you again for their wonderful hospitality. We're also grateful for Humanities Nebraska and Nebraska Cultural Endowment for their continuous generous support to help make these concerts possible. The River City Ringers would not be able to do what we do without their support. In your program, there's a little half sheet. If you wouldn't mind filling this out on your way out from the concert and putting it into the basket at the welcome table, this helps us. While they're just simple questions, it helps make us possible and eligible for future grant assistance. Without that grant, we're not able to do certain things, but we're also not able to provide these concerts free, so we can keep them open to the public. So we'd love for you to fill those out and place them in the basket on the way out. Next to that same basket is also an offering, a free will offering. Any donation, small or large. We take tax deductions, inheritances, 401ks. But truly, we do appreciate anything they're able to support the arts. Here in Nebraska, we're exceptionally generous to have an incredible wealth of arts here. And people think of Nebraska as a small flyover state, but in Nebraska, we have 3 symphony orchestras, 3 community bell groups. That's no small potatoes for Nebraska. So it's a big deal that we have such wonderful support for the arts here in Nebraska. Our last song is the infamous Stars and Stripes by John Philip Sousa. I can't think of a more iconic song maybe than the national anthem than this song. It dates back to 1987 and grew in popularity during the Spanish-American War. And at one point in our history, Americans actually stood for the performance of this because it was so revered and so patriotic. We certainly won't stop you if you stand for this, but we are the River City Ringers. Thank you again for coming out this evening. thank you again for coming this evening. If you are at all interested in what is going on up here, which is a lot, or even in the back row, please come on up. Our ringers would love to show you a lot of the different shiny things. It's all shiny. But you're more than welcome to come up and ask and see what's going on up here. Thank you again for coming.
So we have a picture of me as a kid.